On this episode, we are intentionally talking about our intent to live with intention. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to the 88 Show. This is the internet's only dental show where we're talking about what matters most in the marketing world, because that's what we do. I'm your host, Joshua Scott. This right here is episode 91. 91 episodes into it, and I'm super excited today to be kicking off our June topic, which is called With Intention, building a blueprint for success. And to tell you the truth, this was a little bit of a trippy topic to write because the way I see it may not be the way you see it. And sometimes these big abstract ideas, they're hard to get into these like concrete kind of components, to walk away with. And so I kind of did my best with it, like my lens of this is what it means to me to live with intention. But that's what this episode is about. We're going to be discussing that. And then next episode, really excited to have my friend John Giganti on here. Going to be interviewing him because he has his own podcast called With Intention, and just asking him what that means from his perspective to live that way. But let's jump into the episode. I got some drawing to do. Jay Moore, you ready to head over here? All right, let's do it. All right, so when we're talking about living with intention, what we're talking about is living with a set of values. It's a set of guiding principles. So at the end of everything, we end up in the place where we want to be and not just sent one direction or another by life and everything that comes at us, right? So for me, living with intention is probably best defined by this diagram. And honestly, this is what started the entire conversation to begin with. And so on one end of this spectrum is boredom. And on the other end of this spectrum is chaos. Okay, and so my life tends to swing between one or the other, somewhere along this spectrum. So for instance, in the beginning of starting this company, there wasn't enough clients and projects to fill my time. And so there was lots of free time, which can lead to boredom. And so I had to be very intentional about what I was doing with all my time, okay? Now, it's the exact opposite. There's too much projects. There's too much things going on. And so it tends to go towards chaos, which for me feels very overwhelming. It feels very out of control. And I don't like that at all. And so I define success as this kind of elegant space right in the middle. It's not too much boredom. It's not too much chaos. It's perfect, right? And so that for me is living with intention. It's having the space to be inspired. It's having the space to continue to work one-on-one with clients. It's having the space to continue to lead my team and do business the way that we want to do, defined by the values and the principles that are guiding us to the place we want to be at in the end. And so that is a picture of what success looks like. Now, let's get to the what, the how, and the why to make this happen. There's a really great book out there by Simon Sinek. Most of you guys know this book, Start With Why. You may or may not have read the book, but you've probably seen the TED Talk. But in this book, he talks about what he calls the golden circles. And in the center is the why. And so the whole premise of his book is start with why, right? Like at the innermost circle. That why dictates how we live our life. If you can define your why, then that will determine the road, the path that we're following. And then ultimately, that creates the what. At the end of it, it's like the manifestation of the why and how it's played out in our life. And when I first started thinking about how do I live with intentions, this was a great diagram. It was a great roadmap, because what I did was I actually flipped it and I said, let me think about the end. Where do I want to be at the end of my life, right? Because that's what living with intentions is about, is at the end getting to the right place. And so the question I ask myself that I want to put out there to you and maybe challenge you is, what if you assumed abundance? What if you assumed an abundant amount of success, right? Like let's picture the end and there's everything you want there. Like you did it, you got there. And I think this is important because a lot of people have a zero-sum mentality, meaning the pie is only so big. And so it's this scramble to make sure we get ours, and that affects the decisions we make. But if we took money out of the equation, right? And this is the money question. Like, what would you do if money were not an option? Like, take it out of the question, imagine your life with abundance, and then ask yourself, what would today look like if there was abundance? Like, what would your week look like? What would your practice or your business look like if you believed there was abundance in the world? Because there is. And so that was the first place to start. Is number one, here's what I picture based on a view of abundance, all right? Number two, how do I get there? All right. And so that actually creates, when you ask that question of how do I get there, what we're doing is creating values. We're creating principles that almost create these guardrails in our life, this path of I'm going to go this way. And now we have to find elegant solutions to live within those guardrails. And it actually requires us saying no a lot of times to things. Tim Ferriss, in his book, Tools of Titans, opens up the entire book asking the question, what if this were easy? What if life were easy? And he kind of makes the statement of, it can be. The how we get there, it can be easy, but it requires us to look and find creative solutions to live and operate within those guardrails, within those principles that we have defined, all right? And then last is the why. When you live with intention, you'll get attention. And this is your moment to shine your why. This is your moment to let people see it. And so as you function in your business and your practice and you set it up and you say, we're going to do things this way, and you've got that set direction defined, now people see that and they ask about it and it gets attention. And so don't shrink back from that. Share your story. So guys, thanks so much for being here. Episode 91 is in the books, but before we go, question of the episode, how do you live with intention? How do you live with intention? So that's the question. I'd love to hear your comments because clearly I'm not the only way, the right way of seeing this. I'd love to hear how you see it as well. This month's article down below, you'll find a link to that. Also, best place to find me online is at Instagram, at Joshua Scott. We'll link that up. Guys, thanks so much. I feel good about this one. Hopefully it helps. I'll catch you on the next episode.